Good morning. My name is Ann Marie Beale, minister of Unity Church of the Cumberlands. You know, there are places on this planet that you can travel to where people often say they have spiritual experiences. It seems like the veil is thinner there, something about the energy of those places. For instance, Sedona, Arizona is one of those places. Or right here in Tennessee, the Smoky Mountains, Mount Shasta, California, Tibet, India, Machu Picchu. But it takes thousands of dollars sometimes to travel to those places. And you can have that experience right in your own home, and it doesn't cost a dime. It's going to that place in consciousness where you finally are able to cross over, even for a glimpse of what the Bible calls the Promised Land. The Promised Land, you know, I used to think California was the Promised Land. Back when I was growing up, we thought of California as the Promised Land. But now it's so crowded and all the earthquakes, I don't really look at it that way anymore. It's not a physical place. It's a conscious realization of your oneness with the divine and with all life. And even if you only get a glimpse of that, your life is never the same again. So there's a Bible story that talks about how to get there. And we're going to look at that today. Now we're going to interpret it metaphysically, which means every person, place, or thing in the story is an aspect of my consciousness. We make the story come alive inside of us because some of these stories, if you take literally, they're kind of hard to swallow. You see, the Eastern culture taught with stories, and they were often exaggerated stories. They didn't care about the facts, they were just teaching a truth through the story. And the more exaggerated the story, the greater the spiritual truth. I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and Bugs Bunny would say, anything's possible in a cartoon. Well, we can say that about the Bible stories too. Anything is possible in a Bible story because it doesn't have to be factual. It's just teaching a truth. All right, let's look at the story. The journey of the Israelites to the Promised Land represents our own journey to that state of consciousness where we too are able to cross over into that higher state of mind. Now, reality check, when you're trying to cross over into the Promised Land, you don't just walk in and say, honey, I'm home. Look at the settling of the West. The story in America when we settled the West. There was bloodshed. The Native Americans were murdered. And whoever wrote history decided who wore the white hat. It was the same in their time. When they crossed over into the Promised Land, there was bloodshed. And so we look at these stories and say, how can killing people be sacred? If it's in the scripture, it should be sacred. But when you interpret it metaphysically, it starts to make sense. Oh, wait a minute, there's something in me that has to die. Something in me, in my state of mind, that I have to kill off in order to enter that higher state of mind. Now the story comes alive. And so to get to the Promised Land, the Israelites had to cross the River Jordan. Now, I grew up alongside of the Mississippi, and it was a very calm, it was a huge river, but a very calm flowing river. But the River Jordan was a raging, powerful stream, and to cross it wasn't always easy. And so when we take that into our metaphysical interpretation, the matrix of our minds has raging streams of consciousness, most of which are subconscious. We don't even know they're there until we're triggered. And often they're negative, anxious, obsessive thoughts that all of a sudden somebody says or does something, we're triggered, and we're right in that stream of consciousness. You know, just when I think I'm evolved, something happens and I slip into those reactions and I realize I'm back in that raging stream. In the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, they talk about the River Jordan. There is a stream of thought constantly flowing through the subconscious, made up of thoughts, good, bad, and indifferent, which is typified in Scripture by the River Jordan. The thought stream has to be crossed before anyone can enter the promised land. The matrix of our thought system has dammed up the free flow of divine energies within us, cutting off the divine expression. So you see why it's so important to face that raging stream and be brave enough to cross it. It takes courage to process our issues. You know, in the time of my grandparents and parents, they never talked about processing their issues. Can you imagine your grandfather or even your father saying, I'm getting in touch with my feelings today. I'm just not feeling safe. I'm processing my issues right now. They would have been laughed right out of their lodge, right? But the evolution of mass consciousness, we're ready now to face those raging streams within us and to cross them, to clear those issues, those subconscious things that we still hold on to. And we have to have a willingness to go on beyond where we've been. It feels good to be stuck in our safety net, doesn't it? To be in that status quo where things never change. But to have that courage, we have to be willing to know our union with God, our union with the divine, and that we will be guided. And then we can have the courage to face those issues of separation and abandonment, those issues of betrayal and unforgiveness, or whatever raging stream you may be holding on to inside of you. A while back, I had a friend call me. She was in terror, feeling terror, and she was asking me to help her. And of course, she was blaming it on something outside of herself. But I convinced her that if she wasn't holding on to terror inside of her, she wouldn't be having it be reflected outside of her. And she was brave enough and spiritually aware enough to understand that and willing to face that inner terror that had happened way in her childhood. And she was able to walk through that and release it and process it out. Whenever we're triggered, we need to ask ourselves, what old belief is being transformed by this? What old fear is being released by this? What old unforgiveness issue is being cleared by this? What old wound is being healed by this? It wouldn't be showing up out there if you weren't holding on to it in here. And that's what it means when Scripture says, make friends with your adversary. Make friends with your adversary. In other words, don't fight or resist that which is before you that is triggering you. As the Borg says, resistance is futile. In unity we say, that which we resist persists until we finally face that trigger issue and cross over it. There is a power in you that can help you cross that River Jordan, that stream of consciousness that is so in your subconscious you're not even aware of it at times. And when you're triggered, there's a prayer, if you're brave enough to pray it and cross over. I love to say, oh, I'm grateful for this trigger. My buttons are being pushed to help free me. I bless this trigger. I'm grateful it's helping me face something I need to face and free myself. Does that take courage? Of course. Now, the Moses consciousness brought the Israelites to the promised land, but it was the Joshua consciousness that took them into the promised land. And metaphysically, Moses represents that old eye for an eye mentality, that God is that outer being out there, and everything's going on out there and happening to you. Joshua is that evolution of consciousness where we realize the inner divine presence is in all of us. in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, it mentions that the Hebrew name Joshua is identical with the name Jesus. Both of these names are derived from the word Jehovah, meaning I am that I am. The only difference between Joshua in the Old Testament and Jesus in the New Testament is the extent of conscious realization of the divinity within the I am. So the way to the promised land is that intellectual understanding of what we think God is. And the way into that promised land is the conscious realization of, oh, I am that I am. And then we cross over into that state of consciousness that we call the promised land. Now back to the story in Joshua 3, 7 through 17, if you'd like to read it later. The Israelites set out to cross the river Jordan, but they were told by the divine presence that the priests needed to walk before them, holding onto the Ark of the Covenant, and stand in the river as the Israelites crossed through. Now, the wisdom of God sounds ridiculous to man, and that sounds like a silly idea. You can imagine how big the Ark of the Covenant is if you remember your Indiana Jones movies. But metaphysically, remember the River Jordan is that raging sea of consciousness. And we too have those same barriers. And so when the priests and the Ark of the Covenant represent our spiritual nature standing in that faith of our belief now that we're one with God, standing in the middle of that raging river and listening to Spirit's prompting and trusting that guidance as we walk through and cross through those subconscious issues. The metaphysical story is so good right now through the virus when we can be triggered by old fears and doubts, not knowing what may happen. Charles Fillmore said, in any difficulty, when I stand in faith and the awareness of my spiritual nature, the fear stops and I cross over into the higher realms of my good. I see the parting of any difficulty and I pass through it safely. Very similar, isn't it, to when Moses parted the Red Sea, another story of parting that sea of consciousness. Well, the Israelites made it into the promised land. Now they have one more obstacle, and we're going to talk about that next week. That will be those walls of Jericho have to come tumbling down. Okay, well, we have a surprise today. Brandon Loftus is going to sing a solo, and his husband Chris has a reading in the midst of it. But first we're going to do our Sunday love offering that we do each week with full gratitude for all of you who continue to support your source of spiritual nourishment. So join with me, won't you, in affirming the abundance of the universe flowing through us as we say our offertory blessing each Sunday together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. And so if you'd like to support Unity Church of the Cumberlands, you can go to our website, unitycookville.org, and click the donate button, or you can mail your offering to 823 East 10th Street, Cookeville, Tennessee, 38501. And now, here's Brandon and Chris.
It Is Well With My Soul was written by Horatio Spafford after traumatic events in his life. The first two were the death of his 4-year-old son and the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which ruined him financially. In 1873, he had planned to travel to Europe with his family on the SS Ville de Havre. In a late change of plans, he sent the family ahead while he was delayed on business. While crossing the Atlantic, the ship sank rapidly after colliding with another sea vessel, and all 4 of Spafford's daughters died. His wife Anna survived and sent him the now famous telegram, "Saved alone." Shortly afterwards, as Spafford traveled to meet his grieving wife, he was inspired to write these words as a ship passed near where his daughters had died.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. 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 It is well with my soul.